Today we're going to look at figurative language when we're thinking of poetry. Now, whether you're looking at poetry or if you're looking at prose, a lot of times your figurative language works in a very similar manner. So when we look at a simile, which is a comparison of two things, and you have to use the words like, as, or than, or you're going to see the word being something resembling something else. That comparison that you might see in prose, we can use those in poetry as well. So, for example, you might have a line in a lyric poem saying, "She is as beautiful as a sunrise." In spite of it being in a poem instead of a prose like a story, it still works as a simile. We also have metaphors that are used in both prose and poetry. Now, a metaphor, just like a simile, is a comparison of two unlike things, but this time it is direct. We don't need to have the like or as or resembles. It is a direct comparison between one and the other. You'll use the forms of the verb to be. William Shakespeare has used quite a few metaphors in his poetry. For example, he once wrote, "All the world's a stage, and we are merely players." You will also see extended metaphors that go through several lines or possibly the entire length of a work. If I go back and look at "all the world's a stage and we are merely players," you're going to see him continually going from line after line after line, describing how we are all actors on a grand stage, on a grand scale. Checking out Shakespeare, you will find several extended metaphors in all of his lines of poetry. We might also see implied metaphors as we read through our poems. The comparison is hinted at, but it is not clearly stated. So this is not a simile. You don't have the words like or as, and it's not quite a direct comparison. So let's look at the Pearl from John Steinbeck, where he says, "The poison sacs of the town began to manufacture venom, and the town swelled and puffed with the pressure of it." So the town obviously is not physically creating poison sacs. We're kind of comparing the town to a snake, but we haven't talked about a snake in our particular sentence. It is implied that the town is making that comparison. The next word we'll look at is hyperbole. Now, hyperbole is an exaggeration often used for emphasis, and you need to understand that it is an exaggeration. For example, if I use the term, "if I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times," your understanding is I haven't actually literally told you something 1,000 times, but it feels like I've told you time and time again. And so it is an understood exaggeration, and it's used to emphasize a feeling. We also have the understatement, which is the opposite of the exaggeration or overstatement. A lot of times you'll use the word litotes for it as well. It's, like I said, it's exact opposite of hyperbole. It's often ironic. So if you called a slow-moving person speedy, and you have that understanding that they are not, they're actually slow-moving, you would call that a litote or an understatement. Idioms are also quite often used in both prose but in poetry as well, where you'd see an expression where the literal meaning of the words are not quite the meaning of the expression. It is understood that the topic means something other than what it actually says. So like the overstatement and the understatement, the idiom should have a sense of knowledge or understanding behind it. For example, if I said, "It's raining cats and dogs," you have the understanding that if you go outside, it's not literally raining cats and dogs from the sky. That would be dangerous for you and for the cats and the dogs. That expression, you know or you understand, it is just an expression, and there's this understanding when you say it's raining cats and dogs that it's raining very hard outside. It's pouring down, but it doesn't mean cats and dogs are falling from the sky. An idiom. The next we'll look at for figurative language is personification. Now, personification is an animal given human-like qualities or an object given human-like or lifelike qualities. So if we look at From Ninky by Shirley Jackson, she talks about how Ninky was by this time irritated beyond belief by the general air of incompetence exhibited in the kitchen. And she went into the living room and got Shax, who is extraordinarily lazy and never catches his own chipmunks, but who is at least a cat and preferable. Ninky saw clearly to a man with a gun. Now, these are not humans that we're talking about. As you can see from my picture, these are cats that have been given human-like qualities. And that'll do it for our different figurative languages. If you'd like to learn more about poetry, please stick around. I have a playlist. You can continue on. If there's other things about poetry that you would like to see, please leave in the comments what I've missed and what you'd like to learn more about. Otherwise, I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. Thanks for stopping by.